Welcome everyone. This is once again your host bringing you live Shailesh from New Zealand World News, but also most importantly, we are continuing our series of emotional well-being. And today I have once again the pleasure to continue the episode number 2, which is what are the symptoms of emotional well-being? We started with what is emotional well-being, and today we're going to do the second episode. What are the symptoms of emotional well-being? So we're going to recap and come back that what is emotional well-being and then what are the symptoms on it. So welcome Bianca once again for this beautiful episode like last time what we did. So this is even though it's emotional well-being, don't get emotional, I would say, but deal with the emotions. And this is what we're going to find out when the symptoms are there. That's where we understand how to deal with the emotions. And today we're going to talk about the symptoms and then how to deal about that as well. So let's dive into it. Bianca, welcome once again for this beautiful episode. Second, please tell us how's your emotional well-being has been today.
Well, thanks for having me back. I think today it's been pretty good. It's been a public holiday, so
Yes,
it's
that's
been
good.
relaxing, catching up on any schoolwork, and yeah. How about you?
Yeah, it's been Easter Sunday, so it's a good thing to do an episode on that because this is what we always like to talk about certain things. Also, that while communicating, we also reduce the risk of not getting distressed or depressed because we are speaking out. That's the beauty of it. So, let's dive into the second number, episode number 2, where we wanted to talk about when we were talking about what is emotional well-being, we always thought that, emotional well-being is all our inner, not the outer. And outer affects the inner, but it's more to deal with the inner self. Basically, we were talking about what is emotional well-being, how it is, and what not it is. So today, what are the symptoms that we're going to talk about? How do you see that? How do you recognize that a person is in emotional state or is in a depressed state or is in a happy state or what is, that's all emotions that show up. But then behind the smile, whether and when you are crying literally and when you know you are crying or when you are sad, that's where we understand and we try to understand what has caused. So what are the symptoms of, first let's see what are the symptoms of emotional well-being according to you, what you have experienced yourself so far. Let's dive into that.
I think the symptoms are probably being limited to do things in your life because of your mental well-being. So if you're limited in any way because of it, then that's a symptom of your mental well-being. So not being able to go outside or not being able to socialize is a symptom of your current mental well-being state.
Hmm. That's true. That's true. That's very true. So how do you, like how do you basically what like when you went to diagnose, the doctors say that okay, if you are sick, they will look at the temperature. If you are, have hurt yourself, they will look at the wound and all of that. How do you identify that you are emotionally down or emotionally up, There is no appearance that you can see it. So, what's your diagnosis? How would you diagnose the symptoms? Tell me. It's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess it's like looking at what your mindset's like towards daily life and what your daily life is like, and
Hmm.
I guess what your body is telling you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. Absolutely. Yeah. But then when you look at like how do you identify that if someone say depends on whatever you are doing activity and if you are not into your element, like even if simple things, if you want to cook your food or if you want to clean your house and but you are not in the mood or you're becoming lazy or you are not feeling good about doing anything, then that could be one of the symptoms of your emotional state. Am I right, Bianca?
Yeah, so it's
What do
like
you-
looking at that change. Like if you're like you're normally used to
Mm.
cooking dinner every night, but for the past week it's been too much to handle. It's a change in your life, right?
Right, that's
That
right.
change can be a symptom and it can be a way to
Mm.
observe or understand what's happening.
Mm. Do you think moods are one of the symptoms as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that mood swings. Or sometimes, you feel that, oh, you were in the good mood just now, and after 2 minutes, you are not in a good mood. So you're simply suddenly changed your thing. At that time, you might think that, oh, it's normal, but then you don't know whether it is normal or is it really the emotional well-being that has affected that change. So, in that regard, what would be your uh, assessment or what you think, even if your friend, close friend, or even if in your own family members, when they change, you don't know. They may be laughing at one stage and they may be crying at another stage, you see. But
Mm.
something is bothering, we don't know. Constantly, something is bothering to everyone, not just us or this. But what we are discussing today is the symptoms. Like, whether they are close friends, not friends, whether they are just colleagues, doesn't matter. They are interacting with you. And when you interact or you understand, oh, is that person all right? Is it okay? Is he or she is okay or not? Depending on their moods, you try to analyze or you try to assess. So how would you, judge? People judge quite fast, and then it aggravates the the person around you. So how would you, make those analysis or diagnosis of symptoms that whether I should deal if suppose say for instance a person is sad or is in a not in a good mood or you can see from expressions, would you go and like if you talk, sometimes it aggravates and sometimes it soothes the person. It depends on the person to person. But what's your gut feeling that when somebody you feel someone is dealing on such expressions, if they have, how would you react?
Well, I think it's very easy for outsiders to like instantly just go to judgment towards that person who's having lots of mood swings and just assuming what's going on in their life when you don't actually know. So I think it
Mm,
is about understanding you're able to see that change. You're able to see that person go through those mood changes
mm,
so fast.
mm,
And it's about asking the person what they actually need because each person needs something different, right? Like some people want to talk through it, some people want to be left alone and they don't want to talk through it. It's just about
mm,
asking, hey, like, what do you need? Do you want me to listen and do you want to talk to me,
yeah.
or do you want me to go in another
Mm,
room and give you some space for now and you come to
yeah,
me when you feel ready for that?
yeah,
So it's just really about knowing the people who are around you and creating a judgment-free space where they feel like they are open to being able to talk to you.
that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Like I think anxiety also causes, and then sometimes your anxiety also changes in the moods and the swings, but also your temperament. And sometimes your temperament is very important that you don't know whether I should talk or not because that person is in a different temper, right?
Yeah.
So it's very becomes very difficult. And how do you see that, when it comes to this diagnose and you understood what you said is right, but then do you think that, giving a support or caring for that person, or how's the empathy, kindness showing towards that person, or is it like leaving them on their own to have a self-care? What's your analysis and assessment on that?
I think it really depends on the person, to be honest. Like each person's different. Everyone wants something different, right? I think it's just about asking what they need at that time. If
Yeah,
they're the
but
listening ear, then you be that listening ear, you know?
I agree, but like suppose say you and I are there, example, and
Hmm.
say you understand that okay, I am in a bad mood or temper, exactly, but it affects you, right? Because you
Yeah.
are interacting and you want to help and you want to support, but you don't know the symptoms are there that he needs support or he needs self-care, or should I just leave it, or should I just approach the way of approach of the each person It depends on each person to person. I agree 100% on that because you can't read your mind. You can't read anybody's mind unless they tell you, unless they, open up.
Yeah.
You won't know. But then how do you make them open up? And how do you make those transition of interaction and communication so that, that person feels that I'm being looked after or care automatically and then they open up. It's a very thin line. What will
Yeah.
happen? It's a very thin line. What will happen when you interact? But this is but we have to still deal with it, irrespective of whether you ignore or you become silent or you interact. You still have to react and interact, right? Even if you're silent, it's a
Hmm.
reaction. And even if you're interacting, it's a reaction, right? So that well-being is not just about the person who you identify as their symptoms, but it affects the another person as well who has identified this symptom. So, it's like dealing with one who has identified the symptoms and one who is already dealing with that innerly.
Yeah.
So, so that's the transition that we are dealing and we have to manage. And what's your take on that? Like, when certain things happen, they are angry or anxiety, or you see that they're very anxious about seeing. So, what is the nature of has caused that? What it has caused? What are the symptoms that has caused them? Basically, if you don't know the situation, if you don't know the circumstances, if you don't know, then you just can't judge. But then sometimes jokingly, humorously, you find out what's really going on, you know? So,
Yeah.
so what's your take on that? How do you deal with such things?
I think most people just want a listening ear and they don't really want
Right.
advice,
Mm.
right? Like
I agree totally on that.
most people want to talk about themselves. And if they're
Mm.
able to do that within a free space, then they're able to
Mm.
heal a little bit. And they don't necessarily want advice in your opinion. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I
Mm.
think that's a bit of an asking ground, right?
Mm. Mm.
Um, and I totally understand that person's another person's mental health can affect your mental health as well, right? Because if
Yep.
they're constantly going through mood changes and mood swings,
Mm.
you don't know how to act around them, right? And
Mm.
you're like, do I say this? Do I not say that? So it can
Mm.
definitely affect your mental health. But I think approaching that is about time and place. So
Yeah.
if you can see that they're down and you bringing that up right now is going to make the situation so much worse, I think you should
Mm.
say support them as much as you can.
Mm.
And once you can tell that they've calmed down, they're emotionally stabilized, then bring your feelings up because otherwise it's going to keep building it up and it's going to build up until your mental health is now affected, right?
Yeah.
And so you're both going to have poor
Yeah.
mental health because of this reason and because it's not being communicated about.
Mm.
So the key thing here is really communication.
Absolutely, I agree totally. Now, that's a very well said point, and that's the patience, right? When you want to listen to someone, you need that patience, and not everybody has got that patience level, right?
Yeah.
And so that becomes a challenging for many people who are impatient. They want to solve it fastly, but they don't understand that if they try to solve it fast or just react fast, that can cause more issue for the person. Because if you're not listening and you are just reacting, thinking that I want to solve, your intentions are good, but then that may turn into a custard. Am I right?
Yeah, well,
Is
yeah,
that what I'm
because
hearing you?
yeah, well, I mean, as humans, we want like instant results, right? We want it to be easy, and we
Mm,
click and easy, and we want to get the results, and it's not always the thing that's going to
no.
happen. So this is long.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. Totally agree. But then again, it's like, again, it's the phases of your life and the circumstances of your event that has caused those things. But how, like, suppose, say, one person, it's not going on. How do you know how long that emotional well-being has been compromised or has been, not in the right spirit? So symptoms could be a day, 2 days. Some people might be 10 days suffering, and you don't know how and why. their circumstances are. So how do you make those assurances like, okay, we don't know, but we came to know now, but that person may be dealing that situation having for 2 days or 10 days. We don't know, you know. So how, so then again, is it too late to self-care or to care for that person or give support, or is it, like how we have missed the boat, that not caring? How do you, the symptoms are very like fragile. We don't know the symptoms sometimes, many times, right? But we have to keep attention to detail. If you are with any person, then what's really happening with that person? Does that make sense? Like, how do
Yeah.
we?
Well, I think you can never truly know unless the other person tells you. Like, there are definitely be signs that you can look for, like lifestyle changes, mood swings, physical changes, but you'll never truly know unless that person communicates to you. But it is never too late to
Mm,
lend a helping hand once you do notice those signs. There's always a perfect time to start now rather than tomorrow, right?
of course,
Yeah.
yeah. And what do you think about the social behavior? Could be one of those symptoms, or could be one of those, that we could immediately understand. Like, suppose if you're going out with any person, even for even in a cafe or a movie or whatever, and if that person is deprived or is not happy to go out, that means his social behavior, he is withdrawing. He or she is withdrawing the social behavior to go out and just stay in their own closet alone by themselves. And then how long do you allow these circumstances to happen? What's your view on that?
Well, I definitely think when someone's going through something mentally, they definitely isolate themselves. Like if you're stressed, you're gonna isolate yourself
Mm,
from everyone else. Like say you're stressed about work or uni or whatever it is, you're gonna
yeah.
isolate yourself to like focus on that one thing. But it's
Hmm.
gonna get to the point where you've isolated yourself for so long that going out becomes, I guess, like scary and overwhelming, right?
Mm,
And same with anxiety. If you've got anxiety and you isolate yourself, you're hiding yourself away from the thing that's scaring you. But
absolutely.
yeah, but doing that thing that's scary that you haven't done in weeks or months is the thing
Mm.
that's going to help you get out of that place.
And when it comes to, like, you said the point, like, you have to care for the others and you have to give the support as early as possible whenever. But when it comes to that, like, how do you first and foremost understand that what has led to those symptoms? Is it because of lack of sleep, lack of eating, lack of whatever that you think? Do you think that conversation also is very much important in terms of understanding the moods, the swings that has it caused because of sleep, because of diet, because of food, whatever could happen? You being in the health industry, in the health interested, I wanted to pick your brain on it, Bianca, that how important is the health? Because you don't know the ingredients of the food that you are intaking, but
Mm.
you do know that what is good for your tongue, you can consume it. What is good for your body, you don't know. And then that's some of the things that, as they call it, the food allergies, they call it. And sometimes they say that because of that, your reactions or your mood swings or your issues have crept in, or you don't get sleep, or you don't feel like working and you feel lazy. All these things that comes along, which then leads to emotional well-being being, you know, taken that highest toll on it. What's your take on this when it comes to, understanding the symptoms, but then what has caused the symptoms? You see?
Yeah, so what causes it, I think, is probably one, like your mental state, like your mindset towards things. So that
Mm,
you're if you've always got a negative mindset towards things, it's always going to have a negative outcome. You're always going to view it in a negative light
right.
because you have like a positive mindset towards it, right? And I also think it's a
Mm,
bit of lifestyle. So it's like who you surround yourself with. What are you doing on the daily? Are you just spending all
mm,
your time in bed? And so I
mm,
love a good bed day, but we can't spend
mm.
every single day in our beds
Yeah.
scrolling on TikTok. And we need to have that physical aspect in our life, or at least we're going outside for a walk because we need to have
Mm-hmm.
our physical health
Yeah.
in check. We need to have our social health in check, right?
Mm. Mm.
Our mental state in check. And if we've got all those things
Mm.
going well, then you're able to maintain a healthy lifestyle. But I think if even just one of those things falls behind, then it can
Mm-hmm.
affect everything else in your life.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's like a pack of cards. Like you can build up cards, but then one card falls and everything goes down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I understand what you're saying. So what is the, causes? The symptoms are there, and then the causes that leads to those symptoms. And then you have got variety of those episodes of in circumstantial, you call it, or you make an environment that is not really helping. So what's your take on the when you understand the symptoms, do you think the environmental and the circumstantial changes are quite important at that point to make those changes? Or you think this is just another day will pass and it will come back automatically? What your take on that? Because most of the people leave it thinking that let the person deal with it, and
Mm.
they think that that's what it is. But sometimes you don't know, as you said, we don't know that how long that's going to happen, that they're going to continue. So if we don't intervene, then that could go be prolonged, right? So what's your kind of ideal world in terms of when you understand the symptoms, when you identify the system, when you know the causes, that do you think the circumstances, the environmental needs to be changed?
Yeah, definitely. The environment that you're in has such a big impact on your life and what you
Mm,
do on the daily. And it's
mm,
going to impact how you're feeling. It's going to impact
mm.
what you're able to do. So if you're
Right.
able to change an environment, you're able to change your mindset.
That's
Yeah.
correct. That's correct. Absolutely. Yeah. And to because changes constantly happen, right? Keep changes. And as you said at the start, like, our changes are the symptoms, like moods, swings, they keep changing. Our diet, our pattern of sleep. And as you said, like what you eat, what you don't eat also, and then your temper, your moods, your anger, your anxiety. And anything can cause anger, anything can cause anxiety. You don't know until you understand from that person. But that person also may not know what it's actually causing and what are the symptoms. They also don't know. But yeah, dealing is very important. Changes is very important in terms of your environmental and circumstantial changes. So, how do we move and navigate in your way that, as soon as you see something, rather than ignoring, rather than delaying, rather than procrastination, people have got very easy way of putting forward, putting further. Okay, I won't deal with it now. I will deal with it tomorrow or day after. And they let that situation continue. What would you say on it? How would you deal as soon as you identify something is wrong or something is happening to you? Would you ignore or would you really, really take deep dive into yourself?
Well, I think it's very easy to be like, yes, I would do this and that, but it's definitely harder when you actually are there, right?
I
And
know.
yeah, and it's all our first times living, and it's all our first time experiencing different things, and people don't necessarily know until stuff happens about what
Correct.
is the right move for them because it's their first time experiencing it, right? So I
Yep.
think it's really just about looking at yourself and looking what has changed in your life and what has got you to this point. And
Mm,
trying new ways to
mm,
address that and
mm,
change that aspect of your life that you think has negatively impacted your well-being.
mm,
So it's really just about again breaking out of that comfort zone, like doing that thing that scares you, doing that thing that's caused you to be there.
mm-hmm.
And because if you're not gonna do it, you're gonna be in the same boat.
Yeah.
Right. If you don't do it today, you're gonna be in the same boat tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So you
Yep.
just do that one thing that scares you every single day,
Mm,
then it's going to get slowly better because you're going to be comfortable and within the uncomfort, right? So if
mm,
that thing is a lot of people with social anxiety after COVID, right? So
absolutely.
putting yourself out there, doing rejection therapy,
Hmm.
doing one thing to get rejected every single day. So you're able to address that fear head on, you're facing it, and it becomes normal for you. And it's no longer a fear, I guess.
Yes, I absolutely agree. So in terms of, this, whenever there is a symptoms, see, there are few things, right? One, you could have been, we could have been suffering for a long time, and then you understand the symptoms come out. And sometimes the symptoms are right there with any event that happens spontaneously. How do you basically, like, there are certain shocking events happen for them, for others may not be. But then how do you keep constant worrying, you have a trouble of concentrating, but that may have been going on for a few days or few hours or whatever. How would you make those overwhelmed feelings and anxious and sometimes could be irritable, but depressed, but dealing with that is not everybody thinks at that spontaneously at that moment. And as you rightly said, that we don't know how it's going to be happening. But navigating is definitely important rather than ignoring or rather than saying nothing has happened to me. How would you say? Because this is a big element of, fear that if I do this, I may not be the right answer. I don't want to do it. I just want to delay. I just want to leave it just the way it is and I will action it. What would your thoughts would be in that managing these depression issues or the symptoms? How do you manage?
Well, I guess like life is always changing, right? I'm always like doing different things. And
Mm,
I part of being stuck is thinking about the past and thinking about the future and this negative mindset,
mm,
right?
mm-hmm.
So I think it's about staying in the present. I actually came across this idea of like micro mindfulness recently.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. And it's like this idea of like just like taking like a couple like seconds, like 10 seconds a day, and just
Mm-hmm.
doing some being grounded, closing your eyes, taking some deep breaths, being aware
Mm,
of your surroundings to like help you become present. So just like
mm.
any time that you're feeling those emotions, you do some micro mindfulness. You don't have to do like a long period at all. You can just do a little snippet to help
Right,
ground yourself and make yourself more present.
right. Okay. And how would you say that, as we discuss anxiety and fear, but then, like feeling nervous, very much. But then there is also irritable, as I was saying, to be moodiness and very much irritable, and that can lead to anger, impatience, mood swings, all that we discussed. So, but overwhelming is another thing, and burnout is another thing which we notice that when you're doing too much of certain things and without any breaks or without any this, that also leads to this kind of situation, right? Overwhelmed, feeling like overloaded or committing too much to yourself, trying to
Yeah.
commit too much to yourself, right? And then you lose the control, basically. So, how would you deal? Like, this is a situation where you can be uncontrollable, your worries. And if you are not controlling your worries, then obviously you are putting yourself more into that deeper situation. So,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
as a pre-med I definitely felt the effects of burnout because it
Yeah.
was just so much to do all the time. There was never nothing to do. And I felt like I had to study all the time. And every time I wasn't studying, I was like, I felt guilty for not
Hmm.
studying. And then I got to the point
Right.
where I was like exhausted all the time from
Hmm.
studying and not resting. And I
Hmm.
kind of came to the point where I was like, I'm not gonna even though I'm studying, I'm not making any progress because I'm not able to take anything in anymore because I'm just burnt out. So I think
Mm.
it was about learning to feel not guilty for not studying because rest
Right.
days are important.
Yep.
Yeah, rest days are really important for your brain to be able to recover from everything and actually take everything in. So it was kind of about like choosing like one day out of the week where I had
Mm,
time that I could like have like a little like me day. So like
mm,
do the things that I needed to do that weren't around studying or work. It was just
mm,
a day for myself to recompose and do the little
mm,
things and rest. So it's about
mm,
taking time out of the week to really make sure that you're looking after yourself and you're not just focusing on that one thing. Even though that one thing is really, really important
mm,
and it does need to get done, but you also
mhm,
do need to take time to recover because you're never going to get it done if you don't have a
mm.
clean mind.
I agree totally. No, you said very well. This word guilt is so common in human life that whenever we don't achieve something or whenever we don't feel that we feel that we have to complete this in this time and this hours and that many hours. And so you overcommit yourself. And then if you don't, even slight change, then you feel guilty about it. But how do you deal? Because this is a very important, I want to stress on that because it's when I look at it from my point of view, as you rightly said, when you're doing multiple things, I do multiple things. But then, if you don't feel committed, completed, whatever, if you don't feel that you have completed, why should you feel guilty? Because there is no guarantee of completion. There is no guarantee of any time limits in reality. When you start anything new, it's all new. You don't know when it will complete, how much time you take it. But you feel very strongly that if I don't complete, it's I'm failure or I failed. And
Mhm.
that's the common feeling that people have. But how important is it for you, which is you said very rightly, you should not be feeling guilty, irrespective whatever you are into, whatever you're doing, right? How do you elaborate that? Tell me about it. How can you change that mindset of human?
That's a
They,
hard one.
they feel very
Yeah.
committed, right? They feel very committed to complete. So in your world, what is completion? If let me rephrase it, I want to ask this question this way. How important completion means and what is completion? Let's talk about it.
Hmm. Like when I think like from like a uni point of view, right, when you're studying, like you
Yeah,
don't really you always have this like idea of like how much do I need to do? What do I need to complete to get
yeah,
the grades that I want to get? Because it's not really talked about. And like you don't know what's in the exam. You don't know if you've studied enough or you haven't studied enough. So there's this idea of like, have I completed studying? Have I finished studying? Or do I need to keep going? And it's
yeah.
always like this unknown, right? And I think
Mm,
it's
correct.
about like feeling like you know that you've put in the effort and you've
Mm,
done what you can do.
yeah,
And yeah, it's about
that's
looking at
very
yourself.
important. That's very important because when you know that you are doing everything right in your own world, in your own way, irrespective what others think, irrespective what others want to think about it, you are putting all your efforts with your good intentions. So isn't it that is good enough is completion rather than trying to expectations of completion date or completion time or completion things. I understand if there is an exam that you want to go in the uni and you will go to the exam, you have to finish in that 2 hours, 3 hours, that's duration. You can't say that, oh, I have completed by just going into 1 hour because the exam is for 3 hours. And if you're finishing your paper, then you are finishing your paper. That you can finish your paper in 2 hours or 1 hour or 3 hours. It's up to the completion that you know how much you can complete, right? Nobody
Yeah.
knows. So there is no time limit in that regard as well. But there is a time limit for you to complete. But for your ability to complete, there is no time limit. You can complete in 1 hour or you can complete in 3 hours. But the time limit is max 3 hours. That much you know. That's it, right?
Mm.
So why should one person be so much committed? whenever they want to do something, that, oh no, no, I want to do it right. And that's another question, is right. What is right and what is actual completion? So, it's a very, too little also is right, or too much also is right, which we don't know. You can do as much as you want, or you can do as little as you want. You both ways, you are the one who is going to suffer.
Mm.
Am I right? Because
Yeah, no, you are.
if so that's the, like, emotional kind of our well-being is checked by how much you do. But I like the one that you said, is it's about the intentions rather than the completions. So if you think that, yes, I have done enough with my good intentions, whatever best I had, that itself should be good enough for me to achieve what I want from that. Now, in spite of that, if you don't that you don't know at that stage. You only know after the things have happened or finished,
Yeah.
right? So, in that regard, what's the, actual, for every human to actually deal with your own this guilt? How do you deal with your guilt? Let's explore that.
I guess it's about being like true to yourself and not like lying to yourself.
Hmm, that's a big one.
Yeah. So it's like if you tell yourself you're gonna get up and you're gonna go on that run or you're gonna go do that thing at this time, but then you
Mm.
don't do that, you're lying to yourself, right? So it's about
Yeah,
like keeping yourself accountable and doing what you tell yourself that you're gonna do.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's a very big thing. Just like in today's world, we we try to pretend who we are not.
Mm,
Okay. Which means, in other words, what you said is, we lie to ourselves.
yeah.
And if you lie to yourself, you are the one who is going to suffer. You may think that you are hiding something from others, or you are lying to others, but actually you are lying to yourself when you lie to others.
Yeah. Because it's
Does
only
that make
gonna affect
sense?
you. Yeah.
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 So I think this is very important, a very big thing what you said is, because how much authentic, how much unapologetic you are is depends on how much you don't hide from others. Because when you hide from others, you hide from yourself. When you lie to yourself, not others. So
Yeah.
the first person you lie, when you lie anything, the first person you lie is you, yourself, not others. Am I right,
No, I
Bianca?
agree. Because if you tell people you've gone on a run when you haven't gone on a run, sure you
Ah,
may look good. People may be like, oh my God, they're exercising. I'm not doing that. But you're not getting anything. You haven't gained anything from that. You've only lied to yourself. You've only negatively impacted your own life.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so interestingly, you talked about symptoms of, stress as well. Like, we are talking about symptoms of emotional well-being, and emotional well-being is one of the things, is one of the ingredient of emotions is also like stress. Now, stress is also like hidden. Like, it's
Mm,
like an energy. You don't know what is stress. Sometimes some people can cope multiple things and they don't get stress. And sometimes you ask one person to do two things and they are stressed. They can't even finish one thing at one time. So it becomes very difficult for them, right? So
yeah.
when you are dealing with stress, mental health problems, so how would you, like, these are also like symptoms of your stress is one of the symptom, basically. Your emotions, relation with yourself is another issue before even your emotions with others. Because when your emotions come out from you, they first and foremost affect you. And if you tell them that, no, I'm not going to be angry, even though I want to be angry, but I'm not going to be angry, you're going against your will and wishes, you are challenging your own emotions, basically.
Mm,
And I think that is what I personally feel, that we should be all challenging our emotions, because our emotions, first and foremost, affect us, then others. Because that's where we then tend to feel that, oh no, because of that person it happened to me, and because of this person it happened to me. But no, actually it is what you have been doing, and it's not in your control. It comes to you, what it's telling you to manage it, because you don't know when it will come, how it will come. But managing is only you can do.
Yeah,
Am I right?
you
So
are.
so what is, what according to you is the burnout, exhaustion? How does that, symptoms lead? Why does it lead to those burnouts and exhaustions? If I ask you, what are the root main causes of that? You've
I
been
think
dealing
it's
with like, hmm,
like not having balance in your life.
mm-hmm,
If your life is like all of one thing all the time, if it's all work, no play, you're gonna be exhausted all the time. Your brain's never gonna get a break from doing that one thing. It's just gonna become overworked and
mm,
overwhelmed.
mm.
So we can create that balance and you're able to have a bit of both.
But as you know, people feel guilty if they don't finish.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so how that's a $1 million challenge for everyone,
Yeah, I
right?
know it is.
If they are doing multiple things, I can understand. You can ask them not to do multiple things if you can't cope. We can tell them. But
Mm,
if someone likes to do multiple things and then copes with the stress, copes with the guilt, that they don't realize that that could eventually could cause a burnout, eventually could cause extreme. And as you said, then there is that lack of balance, because you are trying to overdo everything, not realizing that the balance is very important. But
yeah.
balancing is a like leads to also, not everybody can balance it. So they think that no, I don't want to balance. I just want to finish it off. If I
Mm,
want to finish it off in 4 hours, they will try to finish in 1 hour or 2 hour. And then that leads to that kind of situation, right?
yeah.
So yeah, so in terms of like what we are discussing today is symptoms, but also what leading to those symptoms also. So anxiety, anxiousness, anger, all these are also fear. Fear and anxiety, they go hand in hand anyway. When fear comes, everything comes. But so I want to take this opportunity now. I think most of the time it's the fear. Almost every time is the fear that leads to many things, emotions. Now, so that means we all are fearful in our mindset of most of the things.
Yeah.
But then how do you make yourself from fearful to fearless?
I think it's all comes down to the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it all comes down to your thoughts,
Yep.
right? That like the idea of like the glass half empty or glass half full type idea,
Uh-huh.
where one views it positively and one views it negatively.
Right.
Yeah. So that positive idea of fair is good,
Mm.
the positive idea of I don't need to do work all the time and guilt
Mm.
does not need to be there.
Mm.
That just changing that mindset and twisting it from half fill or
Mm.
half empty to half fill is
Yeah.
really what's gonna change your life at the end of the day.
Mm.
Because we spend our day with
Mm-hmm.
our thoughts, right? And I go about my day and I'm like constantly talking to myself, right? And the way that you're talking to yourself is going to
Mm-hmm.
implement everything you do, and it's going to make you feel guilty, or it's going to not make you feel guilty. So if you're able to hear those negative thoughts and be like, hold on, it's
Mm.
actually not that, and it could be like seen like this, you're able to change your life and make that guilt go away. make that fear go away because you're able to
Mm,
change how you view it.
mm. I want to pick on what you said is so amazingly beautiful. Sometimes people can feel that when you talk to yourself, when you said talking to yourself is one of the best, just like when you say keeping silent for yourself for few minutes or few hours and isolating yourself from the social everything, that also takes courage to do that. But
Mm,
also, as you said rightly, talking to yourself, sometimes you don't have anyone to talk to because you don't know, you don't want what you want to talk to everyone, you don't want to talk to anyone. But that same what you want to talk, you can talk to yourself. Like sometimes when you make prayer, for example, you pray to God or you pray whatever your culture, religion, whatever, you try to talk to someone when you do a pray, when you are doing
mm,
prayers, you're trying to talk to someone. And that actually someone is nothing but yourself. But that gives you relief. That gives you a lot of relaxation. And so you should take out. But and the same token, someone may say, oh, are you crazy talking to yourself when you say you're not crazy? Right? So I wanted to pick on this, like what you said is absolutely important, that how do you make that change with yourself to talk to yourself, and not feel that I am crazy or not feel that I don't need to or ashamed or guilt. You can still talk, right?
yeah.
How do you, the reason why I ask this symptom is also this is very important aspect of your dealing with the symptoms of emotional well-being. They all point out to our emotions ultimately. So in that regard, that's why I asked you, like what's so crazy about when you say talking to yourself doesn't mean that crazily talking whatever you talk, but you communicate with yourself. Communication with yourself within you. How would you put that for listeners?
Well, I feel like throughout your life, people go and they stay, right?
Hmm.
But the only person who's truly going to be there your whole life is you.
Absolutely. Very well said. Oh
Yeah.
my God. You have deep, deep thoughts. That's good. I like it. It's the more way of spiritually looking at yourself, what you are, who you are, and how ultimately is going to end up. We all are humans. We all have this kind of same, but it's the understanding of yourself is very important with every different person to person. They differ with their understanding of their own self. And what you said is profoundly put very correctly in that context, that at the end of the day, you are the only person with yourself. Nobody is there. So I love that. I think we should end on that. This is beautiful. Beautiful what you said. It's nothing beyond that. Understanding yourself is very important. Yeah. Now, I also have these simple things. One is, how one is your behavioral changes and one is your physical changes when you talked about like the symptoms. And that in behavioral changes could be, avoiding parties, avoiding going to friends, avoiding social, avoiding your colleagues. That could be your social, bindings that you avoid. That's your behavioral changes. But then there are also um, those behavioral changes could lead to compulsive behavior changes. Sometimes like you drink too much alcohol, or you drink too much food, or you drink too much juice, whatever that you like. So that also too much chips you eat and you don't realize, right? That's a compulsive behavior changes as well.
Yeah.
And then that can lead to violence like drugs and assets and all of that as well. Bad vices also, good vices also, but they are still vices that are not required. Those are compulsive behavioral. That's not balance, right? And then we have these changes in the our habits with that whole thing.
Mm.
Whether it is eating more or whether it is less than usual or whatever you do, which can then lead to sleeping patterns. And then your physical reactions could be many. Your muscle, your headaches, your digestive, your nausea, whatever. That could also cause your physical reactions. But all these symptoms of your emotion well-beings are related to health, mental, mind, and then your behavioral, which is the circumstantial changes. All those three aspects. What's your final kind of understanding of these patterns, behavioral changes that leads to our topic today is what are the symptoms of the emotion well-being? How would you like to conclude these in little summarized way,
Mm.
Bianca?
Well, everyone's symptoms are going to be different, but I think it's about knowing who you are as a person, as you're the only person who's truly going to know who you
Mm.
are and what everything's like for you. And if you're able to understand yourself, then you're able to understand the symptoms and the causes
Hmm.
that are causing mental health issues or well-being changes.
Right.
So it's really about knowing who you are and learning to know who you are.
I think that's the best way you put it. Knowing who you are, but learning who you are.
Yeah.
And that is the big thing. Again, it's a deeper thought that not many understand. Why do I want to know myself? People might say, but they don't realize knowing yourself and learning to know yourself ultimately leads to understand who you are, and ultimately leads to what you said before, which I love it, is you are the only one who you are with and who will be with you all the time. So that's a very deep thought that you gave today, Bianca, to all of us. I think it was amazing to talk about this, but leading to this final end is like knowing yourself and learning to know yourself. These are two different things, but people don't want to learn themselves and they just want to learn others. I think
Mm.
90% people wants to learn others than themselves. And that's very profound what you said. So I love it. It's a spiritual aspect. You may not know it, but when you Google it or when you search it, how deeper you have said today, you don't realize this is the and then that another word. So I think I'm going to end this. My for me as a spiritual journey of mine as well. What I can take it from your two beautiful, profound words. One is knowing yourself and learning yourself, but most importantly, you are the only one who is with you all the time.
Mm.
And I think that's absolutely ultimatum. There is nothing beyond it. So, Bianca, thank you. Thank you so much for making enlightening me and profoundly understand, making me remind that who we are at the end of the day and what we are is we need to understand ourselves and we need to learn ourselves, basically, who we are. So that's with that thought, I think our emotional well-being also is attached to it because when you open up to learn yourself, you are exploring. That means you are allowing your emotions to explore rather than restrict and compact, make it compact. So I relate exactly to that. And then also, it's also very important for us to understand that at the end of the day, our emotional well being is controlled by us only. No matter how much we want others to solve it, they cannot solve our own issues. They can guide us, they can tell us, but the actions are with us.
Mhm.
That note, your final word, Bianca. I think I love beautiful those two words. So, what's your final message to the audience who are listening? Because we will come back. This is beautiful.
Yeah, we will. Um, yeah, I guess it's just knowing who you are, knowing that throughout life people come and they go, but you are the only one who's truly going to be there with you for the
Mm,
entirety, through birth
mm.
till death. You'll be the only one there the whole time, which is not a scary thing. And it's
True.
something to learn and to grow and to know who you are over as long as you live.
I love it. Yeah, Absolutely. So, everyone, listeners, this is once again Bianca, I've been talking to. Amazing topic, emotional well-being. Emotional well-being series is all about knowing yourself. It is all your emotions, not everybody else's emotions. But everybody else's emotions are entangled with everyone. So we have to deal with the emotional well being every single moment of our journey until we exist. We can't escape, and it's not a season like a winter, summer, or rain. It's constantly there throughout our life journey. And as she said, we have to be with us all the time, and you are the only one that you are with yourself. That's the most amazing, profound statement she made. So we will come back to you. Then next episode will be further moving away from the symptoms and the causes of emotional well-being. We'll be moving away to how do we navigate this emotional well-being? How do we? And that is also going to be very profound. I'm going to pick Bianca's beautiful brain next episode. Until then, we will see you, and please write to us any feedback that you think is important from today's episode. Any questions to Bianca, please shoot out and we will be answered, try our best. Thank you, Bianca.
Thank you.
All right, let's see you soon in our next episode. How to
I'm
navigate.
excited.
Yeah, excited to do that. Thank you very much.